Hello, Onyx Path Publishing YouTube channel. It's Matthew Dawkins here, and I'm here with a couple of guests for this special Monday evening GMT video. I'm here with Dixie Cochran.
Hello.
Who is one of my co-hosts on the Onyx Pathcast, although that makes it sound like I'm the lead host, so we're all equal, the Onyx Pathcast. And I'm also here with the effervescent Neil Raymond Price.
Hello.
That would have worked better if I'd said it correctly the first time. Who are you, Neil, and why are you here?
I am a writer and developer for Onyx Path. Mostly you may know me as the developer of Scion 2nd Edition, but I often write for Exalted. In fact, Exalted was my very first writing assignment with White Wolf. It was back in the day on Exalted 2nd Edition, and I've written for numerous Exalted publications since then, and I continue to have a hand in the line. So I love Exalted, and that's why I'm here.
Yeah, and this video, as you may be able to tell from the title, is a character creation video for Exalted 3rd Edition, specifically for Lunars, Fangs at the Gate. Lunars are one of the big splats for Exalted, and I know absolutely bugger all about Exalted, beyond what I have picked up from other developers talking, writers talking. I've never played it, I've never ran it, I've certainly never created a character for it. It always felt like a game to me that was just not in my wheelhouse, and so I'm hoping that Neil will sell to me today what makes Exalted so much fun, and one of the best ways of actually doing that is by creating characters.
Okay.
So first of all, first question. Oh, and before we get into these questions, I'm going to also say the reason Dixie is with us as well is because Dixie is monitoring the comments left in the live chat on our YouTube video that's going out right now. So if you're watching this pre-recorded, then you don't get that kind of interaction. But if you're watching it live, you can post comments, you can post suggestions, opinions, and if Dixie thinks they will add something to our discussion, she will rudely interrupt, like I always do to her on the Onyx Pathcast. It will be a sort of measure of karma.
I should have interrupted you while you were saying that, but I did not.
I could see it coming, which is why I stopped. So Neil, tell me, what is Exalted?
Okay. Exalted is an epic fantasy game. It's from the start, it was deliberately designed to not incorporate a lot of tropes from the standard fantasy that's present in Western, Western milieu. It doesn't have a lot that's derived from Tolkien, for example, in there. There's no elves, there's no dwarves in the setting that have the closest thing in there is that there's sort of an element of Greek mythology, and that there were progenitors of the world called primordials who created the world called creation, and they made the gods, and the gods decided that they wanted the primordial stuff, and they decided to overthrow them. But instead of fighting them directly, the gods empowered divine champions to do so. And the celestial Exalted are powered by the sun, the moon, and the stars, respectively. And that's the solars, the lunars, and the sidereals. And the solars are, of course, the greatest and most potent of Exalted. But the lunars are nearly as potent in many areas. And one of the things we like to say on the design team, and one of the things we were doing when we were creating lunars, is we say the solars are incredibly talented specialists. If you're a solar Exalted, you can be the best in the world at whatever you're doing. If you want to be the finest swordsman in the world, you are the best thief, the greatest sorcerer. That's very easily within range of a solar character. The lunars, on the other hand, are incredibly versatile generalists. There is almost no situation where a lunar will be completely thrown out of their element. Like they have options just available to them that nobody else does. So The third
So,
edition.
so if you could
Oh, yes.
explain something to me just for a sec,
Yes.
because I am aware that there's these several splats in Exalted. We call them splats often as developers. They're playable races, if you like, playable classes, depending on the game you're playing. And so in Exalted, you mentioned Solars, you mentioned Lunars, and I'm aware, just based on our previous releases, we also have Dragon-blooded, and
Sure.
there's also these creatures called Abyssals. What exactly is the difference between these types of creatures, if it can be explained in a simplistic way for someone like me who knows nothing?
Certainly, the biggest difference is clearly power level and what they bring to the table. The Dragon-blooded are weaker than other types of Exalted, and they're also more elementally based. So, for example, they can, create poisons or shoot fire from their hands or that sort of thing. But their charms are much more focused on a sort of group cohesion. The Dragon-blooded in the War of the Gods were created to be the foot soldiers, and so they have a lot of small unit tactics charms that are sort of available to them. So play style and play Malo is definitely changes from Exalt type to Exalt type. The Lunars, for example, are more focused on the sort of edges of creation out from the great empire at the center where the Dragon-blooded live. And that's the Sidereals, a lot of their playstyle involves heaven, or what's called Yushan in there, a sort of celestial bureaucracy that oversees the world and all the gods that kind of squabble around in there. And the Sidereals sort of work within this bureaucracy to do it. So it's half ninja, half paper pusher is a Sidereal playstyle. Abyssals are the dark mirrors of Solars who were created long after the first age ended. And they, a lot of their playstyle involves the underworld and this sort of feudal society down below, which you probably be, familiar with a lot of the terms because a lot of them were borrowed from Wraith. So.
Yeah, well, no, that does actually give me a lot more context than I had. And for the sake of the viewers, if any of these questions seem utterly stupid, this is quite honest on my part. I don't know any of this, so this is the first time ever getting any of this in depth.
Exalted is absolutely massive. I've been reading and playing Exalted since 2001 when it first came out, and so there's very few people who have the kind of breadth and knowledge of the setting that longtime Exalted players do, and that's perfectly fine. The only way this hobby grows is if we get new blood in, and the only way people realize how cool Exalted is if we get new people to play. So you have to be able to introduce people to the setting. There's no stupid questions whatsoever, and you shouldn't. And I don't consider any question you would ask stupid.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Neil.
You're welcome.
You are the exalted expert to my vampire, perhaps. Although obviously you know a fair amount about vampire, obviously.
Yeah, a little bit. There's some book I co-developed with.
I can't remember. So let's move on. So we're going to move on to character creation, and all I know about the Lunars, other than what you've just told me, is that they are shapeshifters. Except this isn't shapeshifters that are restricted to being werewolves, which is something I saw someone posting recently on Facebook. They assumed Lunars was a game all about playing werewolves, but I'm given to understand you can basically be something. You can shift into any kind of animal, really. How does that work as a concept?
Well, so the Exalted 3rd Edition book covers the main types of Exalted, and even though the rules for Lunars are just coming out now, there's a handy little section in there about why you might want to play one. So I figured I would start with that, and why would you want to play one? So play one of the Lunar Exalted if you want to be a master shapeshifter wearing 1,000 stolen forms, to be the inheritor of an ancient vendetta, empowered by rage to be nearly unstoppable, to walk the length and breadth of creation with a freedom few others can claim, or to be treated as a living god by barbarian tribes. So every Lunar's...
That's a line. The last line definitely appeals to me.
It's well within the range of a starting character. Just a few dots, and you are worshipped as you are due.
So is that how Exalted are, as the name implies, seen in the world of Exalted? Are they all larger than life heroes? So even down to the foot soldiers you described, the dragon blooded.
Yeah, yes, they are. But the setting is deliberately set in sort of opposition to itself, and the types are set against one another. The dragon blooded are by far the most numerous type of Exalted, and the one that most everyone has encountered at least one of. But the majority of the dragon blooded in creation inhabit the only fantasy superpower in the game, the Scarlet Empire along the Blessed Isle, which if you look at any map of Exalted, it's that big island in the middle. The dragon-blooded rule over creation that way, and they consider the lunar and solar Exalted to be anathema in their religion. They view hunting them and killing them every time they reincarnate as a sort of holy crusade. Oh, and the exaltation is what it's called of the celestial Exalted. It reincarnates. So the exaltation that you bear, the lunar one, belongs to a long line of progenitor heroes stretching back to the dawn of time and the big war between the gods. And you are the inheritor of a mighty legacy, no matter who you're playing.
Okay, I get that. And just in case anyone watching or listening to this is interested in Dragon Blooded as well, it is, I think, for probably a very short time now at this point, still available on BackerKit, unless I'm very much mistaken, but I don't know if it's going to be up there for much longer. So if you're still interested in buying Dragon Blooded deluxe version, you can still do so on BackerKit. So there's my sales bit. But this video is about Lunars. So that's on Kickstarter right now. The link to the Kickstarter is in the video description. And what I'm going to do is try and play with some Google Hangouts trickery at this point with a screen share. So let's see how well this goes. If I can just load up, there we go. I've just loaded up an Exalted 3rd Edition character sheet. Now this is a generic Exalted 3rd Edition character sheet, and I hope that you can see it in all of its glory. Obviously you should only be able to see the top half. I'll have to scroll down for you to see the rest. Are you getting any issues seeing my screen, Neil and Dixie?
No, I see it fine.
I see it just fine. It's
Wonderful.
absolutely lovely.
That means that people on YouTube should be able to see it fine as well.
So quick shout out. I pulled this character sheet from Mr. Gone's character sheets. Mr. Gone has for years and years done really excellent sheets for the community, especially for a lot of White Wolf and Onyx Path games and anything derived from the storyteller's storytelling or even the story path systems. So he's absolutely fantastic. So the one we're going to be doing this a little. We're going to be modifying this a little bit. Instead of supernal ability, which Lunars do not have, that's going to be your totem. So just everyone watching, pretend it says totem animal. So let's start character creation. I have the files up here, and I'm just going to walk you through it.
Okay. Then. So obviously whenever I'm speaking, people will be able to see my screen. Whenever Neil's speaking, you'll be able to see his screen and his lovely face. But I'll try not to type too loudly. I'll just fill you in briefly on one of Google Hangouts' many problem features, but I'll just fill you in on it. You can't mute your mic while you're screen sharing, which means if I'm typing, you might hear me typing, so I will try and type softly and not type on your dreams. Neil, so it looks like my first options are name, player, cast, and concept.
It's true. Like any other storyteller game, the first thing you should honestly start with is a concept. So, in fact, character creation starts with character creation by talking with your storyteller about her plans for the game. And I guess I am the storyteller.
You are.
And I will treat you as if I was treating any new Exalted player to my table.
Very well. So I've been mulling this over. When I first promoted this video coming up, I was thinking I'd like to play some kind of reptilian. That really appealed. But then I changed my mind over the course of days, and I was thinking, one of the animals I really enjoy from Werewolf the Apocalypse, one of the types of shapeshifter I really like is one of the fallen ones, the Grondir, the skull pigs, as they're called. I'm also a big fan of Bebop from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and we even have a cat in this character creation video, probably if he decides to show his face over on Dixie's screen, called Bebop.
You're going to summon him. You're going to summon him by saying his name, and he's going to come down here and be the worst cat.
So in honor of Bebop the cat, we're going to go for some kind of were-boar or were-hog. I like that idea.
Okay.
Do I need to add more to the concept than that?
Well, yeah. Generally, you would think of what do you see your character doing? Now, one of the things that you said appealed to you was your character as a sort of living god. So, do you see them as sort of the divine champion of a barbarian tribe, for example?
I think that's fair. Yeah, I very rarely make physically focused characters, but I could see this character being such.
Okay.
Less a sitting idle in the middle of a pen of revering mortals, and more the wandering hero that goes around vanquishing creatures that are attacking its town.
Yep, a wandering culture hero is absolutely in theme for the Lunars.
Okay, then.
So
let's call my concept Wandering Werehog Hero.
Okay. Looks good. So instead of where it says totem animal, where you wrote that down there, so one of the creatures that is in Exalted 3rd Edition actually fits your concept fairly well. And the Lunars book is going to have a lot more creatures in it, a lot more mundane. Yes.
I'm going to interrupt you for a second.
Sure.
You're being corrected by the Discord. It's a spirit shape, not a totem anymore.
Oh my God.
Neil,
how embarrassing.
All confidence in you.
Also, something about you calling dragon-blooded foot soldiers instead of officers. I'm just saying, I think you're edition warring in your own head.
Oh my God.
It sounds like the dragon-blooded fans have come out in earnest to defend their kind.
This is actually one of the big problems about having read all 3 editions and having all of them in my mind is that sometimes it's very difficult to not have them run together. So, all right, Discord, I apologize. And yeah, actually, step 2 is spirit shape. So I was getting to it. Okay. All right. So instead of supernal ability, let's say it says spirit shape. And we're going to go with the boar type that is in the core book. Specifically, it's called a hell boar.
Hell boar, I like that.
Yeah. So hell boars are one of the more feared beasts of the East in the Blessed Isle. They're extreme omnivores that can crack human bones between their tusks just as easily as they gruffle up roots and tubers. They'll cripple the prey with a bite that crunches through ligaments and bone, stomp them to death before eating the remains. So it sounds pretty good. It sounds very, very physical, very visceral.
Well, I'm happy to go with that. What kind of, I know this is often the thing people do last, but I'm going to ask, what kind of names do Lunars have? Is there any kind of cultural type, or can it be anything I choose?
Well, the thing about Lunars is that they can come from virtually anywhere in the world. And almost any type of exalted character can come from anywhere in creation. But Lunars tend to be more out towards the fringes. But there's a certain style of name that's very popular in Exalted, and that's generally, like adjective noun, like righteous songbird, or, wandering boar would actually be totally appropriate if you wanted to do that. That seems to be the simplest thing to kind of cleave onto if you're coming from the East.
Okay, well, let's go for Broken Tusk.
Perfect.
Okay, then what comes next?
Okay. So you've got your concept. You're kind of a wandering werehog hero. You're wandering around a series of linked barbarian tribes out in the east, and sort of being their divine patron. You're a hellboar is your spirit shape, which is a very, very brutal kind of boar. And now we should look at your cast. You should determine which of the 3 lunar casts fits you best, or whether you wish to begin play as a castless lunar. Now, in 3rd edition, all lunars start as castless, and by start I mean the first time they're exalted. Your character's assumed to have been exalted for just a little while, at least. They start as castless, and they don't have a fixed set of powers. But when they engage with the Silver Pact, which is the sort of larger society of lunars all around, the Silver Pact has within its lore the ability to grant you moon silver tattoos. Moon silver being a kind of magical material in the setting that's specifically attuned and used by lunars. The moon silver tattoos can be of any cultural type that you want, but they are basically full body tattoos of traceries of lines, and they fix you into one of 3 casts. Now, the 3 different casts are the full moons, the changing moons, and the no moons. Full moons are they're mighty warriors. They're indomitable champions. They're warriors, hunters, athletes, bodyguards. Anyone whose mortal livelihood depends on physical prowess is a full moon. Changing moons are diplomats, chieftains, con men, anyone who relies on charm and deceit and trickery to kind of get their way, because the moon's brilliance shifts as it waxes and wanes, showing a different face every night. No moons are lore keepers and storytellers. They tend towards having an air of mystery or wisdom about them. So, savants, artisans, monks, physicians, seers, that sort of thing are no moons. So based on what you've been saying so far.
Full moon, I typed it in as you were talking. I didn't want to interrupt your lovely flow, but full moon is definitely what I'm envisioning here.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good. So you belong to, so you wander around any number of societies in the East that are generally kind of exist outside the control of the realm. So full moon. All right. All right. Next in character creation. Okay. Step 2 is the spirit shape and tell. Every lunar has a spirit shape, an animal that symbolizes your character's truest self, which we've already covered so far. Additionally, each lunar has a tell, which is a distinctive characteristic that's present in any form she shapeshifts into. It may be a marking like a scar or a tattoo, a sort of unusual physical quirk like backbending fingers, a trait of the character's spirit shape, so you might have tusks, or a subtle supernatural display like an oversized shadow that's just a boar, for example, for you.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. The idea is that lunars sort of embody the mythic tropes of shapeshifters, in that a lot of times you'll see some magical little detail that says, oh, this isn't the person or thing that I thought it was. Instead, it is the lunar. They have trouble hiding their identity, even though they are peerless shapeshifters. And once you've seen the lunar's identity, it becomes much easier to see them once again. So, what were you thinking of your tell? You said the bit about the shadow, or
I think the shadow is that's a lovely piece of writing. I like that idea. So yeah, why not? Let's have an oversized boar shadow following me around.
All right, where it says anima up there, we'll just write tell, boar shadow. That is not actually your anima. Your animas, especially for lunars, tend to be sort of platonic ideal, like massive idealizations of your spirit shape. When Exalted spend a great deal of what's called essence, which is their power reserve, specifically peripheral essence, they begin to glow and they begin to set off a kind of aura that has different effects. And when the aura goes totemic, is what it's called when you're spending a huge amount of essence at one time, it'll often take on a sort of idealized shape. For solars, it can be any number of animal or abstract forms. For lunars, it can be really anything you want, but it is typically like the animal shape.
Okay.
So, right. Moving on. That's step 2. You've picked your character style. Step 3 is attributes. Each lunar cast embodies a different form of excellence. Choose 2 attributes from your appropriate list as your cast attributes. For full moons, it's dexterity, stamina, and strength. So choose which 2 of those you'd like to be favored.
So you'll have to excuse if the character seems fairly obvious, but I think strength and stamina.
No, it's perfectly fine. So you should probably write favored next to them.
Well, I'm putting a little asterisk.
That's perfect. Next, choose any 2 other attributes as favored attributes.
Any 2, okay.
Any 2. You could choose dexterity if you wanted to. You could do what would probably be good for your character, if you don't mind me making a suggestion.
No, feel free.
If your character is going to be a little bit more combative, I would definitely suggest wits being in there, and that would also go to your sort of your concept as a more instinctual wandering hero.
Yeah. So I think I'm going to go for wits, and I'm going to go for charisma. After all, these people are following me for a reason. It isn't just my fighting prowess. Clearly, they look up to me as some kind of bodily ideal, being a massive wandering pig.
Oh, no.
I like the idea that these followers of my exalted character decide that the best way of emulation is physical, and so everyone in the village has has pot bellies, and they all roll around in mud. Why not?
So I get that, but when you said your followers, I just imagined that you meant your gentleman gamer followers, and so I thought you were just describing yourself.
Well, it may well be the same. I don't know. I can't speak for my followers. I'm sure they don't all roll around in mud.
I mean, I do sometimes.
Yeah, but you're not one of my followers. That's just a thing you do.
All right. All right. So each attribute begins with 1 dot. Next, of the categories of attributes, physical, social, and mental, you choose 1 as primary, secondary, 3rd is tertiary. Matthew, I know you've been through roughly 1 million World of Darkness games. This is this should come very quickly to you.
It's not 7, 5, and 3, is it?
Notice not. It is 9, 7, and 5.
Well, I'm lost. 9, 7, and 5. Okay,
Yeah.
so before I start assigning anything, my favored attributes, do they convey an additional dot or anything like that?
No, they do not. They
Okay.
But however, they will make charm purchases, charm and experience point expenditures a little bit cheaper in the future.
Okay.
Oh, by the way, at least 1 of your cast or favored attributes must be in the primary category, and at least 1 must be in the secondary category. Which you have you know the width and breadth of the entire attribute spectrum to you.
Well, so we've put 9 in physical, which I think is fair. We'll go for 7 over here. And we will put 5 over in social.
Okay.
Like that. So there's
All right.
our character.
That's a very good spread.
Well, I'm not a fast mover, that's for damn sure, but I don't have to be with that much stamina and strength. I'm quite happy for people to run up to me and try and hit me. They can hit me a few times, I'll then just grab them and rip them to pieces.
That's Yeah, no, that's pretty fair. Okay. Step 4 is abilities. Divide 28 dots among your abilities. Each starts with 0 dots. They cannot be raised above 3 dots without spending bonus points.
Mhm.
And they can't be raised above 5 in any case.
So 28 dots, you say?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, then. So let's go. Let's start with athletics. I'm just going to go for the obvious ones first, as I am a warrior, and then we'll see what's left. So currently spending 8 of these. Let's go up to 10. Martial arts. My character probably doesn't look like a martial artist, but I'm imagining he's going to be a bit of a drunken master, if anything. Yes, Neil, you were about to say something.
Okay. You should know that there are some special rules to purchasing the martial arts skill.
Oh, okay.
The martial arts ability, I'm sorry. You need to take a specific merit, which is going to be later in the character creation process, that indicates that you've gone beyond brawling and into a formalized study of martial arts. Exalted practicing martial arts can channel their essence through it and produce supernatural effects. So the styles that they practice have supernatural powers to them.
Right.
Yeah. So when you buy martial arts, you need to buy the dots in a specific style. Do you still want to be a sort of drunken hero? You can still do that even if you don't take martial arts. But
no, I'm probably more barbaric than that. I think I'm more straightforward. So you've talked me out of it. I'm not a martial artist.
okay.
You ruined-
Characters like barbaric and barbarian, y'all.
Yeah.
We try not to
It's
use them anymore.
It's totally true. We do not use those words anymore.
Yes, that's fair. I'm more of a, what would a good word be? I'm more of a frenzy. Let's call myself a frenzy or some kind of rage beast.
Yeah.
So let's see, how many points have I spent so far? 9, 12, 14, 16, 19, 21, and 24. And you say I've got 28 to spend?
Yes, I would recommend some integrity if you're going to be a boar. It would make sense if you're a little bit stubborn.
Okay.
And perhaps a dot of performance.
Oh, melee
if
might
only
help.
if only because, yeah, melee might help.
Nah, solid. We'll use my fists.
Okay.
Fists and mouth. So I think that is everything. Now I'm just going to do one last count of a 12, 14, 15, 18, 20, 23, 25, 28. So as you can probably see from the way I have assigned my points, when I play these games, I like to specialize more than be an all-rounder. So I'm not the person to go to for decent stealth and mental checks. That's for one of my teammates to handle.
Okay. So the last part of this character creation step is choosing specialties. Now, specialties represent a specific area of expertise within your ability. They can be as broad or narrow as you like, but there must be a notable situation where they can't apply. So melee swords is perfectly acceptable, but melee while armed or melee while breathing are not.
So, for instance, I could go for brawl and bite. Or
Yeah,
gore.
certainly.
Gore
Or-
would be a better one. I like that.
Okay.
I'm probably less inclined to actually eat people to death. So how many specialties did you say I had?
You get 3.
3. So brawl, gore, athletics. Would charge go on to athletics or brawl, do you think?
I do believe that rush actions are athletics. Give me one moment.
I want you to know while we're looking that up that the YouTube chat has named your character a Borzerker. Is that the official term?
There we go. Yes, Borzerker.
Yes, a rush action is a contested dexterity plus athletics roll. So
Right.
yes.
Okay. Well, Borzerker needs to be added to Lunars now. Make it so. And I'm going to choose one last specialty that isn't necessarily obvious for my character. Let's go for, I assume resistance is things like poison and disease. Is it? Or is that more holding your ground?
No, it is much more for poison and disease and the like. If you give me 1 second, I'll tell you exactly what it does.
Well, I'm not going to go for that. That was just a query. I'm going to go for dodge, which doesn't really match up with the character concept necessarily, but I'm going to go for dodge and tumble as a specialty. My character is very comfortable just falling over.
If you've ever seen boars move,
Mm.
if you've ever seen a boar hunt happen, which I've seen dramatizations of, I've never seen an actual boar hunt, but they are very good at dodging spears, which is why a boar spear specifically have those prongs out to the side, because it's not just to brace them; they're very good at moving around it. So a little bit of dodge is not.
Let's change it to sidestep then, because that's
okay.
fun.
I'm going to interrupt with two things. One is that Voodoo Voodoo in the chat says that a better choice for your brawl specialty might be natural weapons. I don't know if you can confirm that, Neil. And then also one of our writers, I'm not actually sure who Pattern Spider is in the chat, but they said there should be 4 specialties, not 3, unless we changed it at some point.
That's not the file I have.
Okay, well, who knows?
Solar Exalted get 4 specialties.
Maybe that's the difference.
3.
Those bloody Solars, overpowered scum.
Listen, I'm just your on-the-spot chat reporter, okay? I don't know everything.
However, natural weapons, I actually was going to suggest that as a specialty for you. You can if you want to. Natural weapons would mean you have a slightly broader specialty to apply to. So it would apply to any boar claws you might have. It would apply to your tusks. It would apply to your bite if that's what you wanted to do.
Oh, that's very much an all-rounder. I mean, what doesn't it cover with brawl?
Very, very little, actually, natural weapons.
In that case, I'm going to stick with gore. It appeals to the specialist in me. While it may mean I'm overall a weaker character, it's my kind of thing.
Okay.
But thank you very much for the suggestion, commenter.
Sure. So a specialty, whenever you make a roll with an ability with an associated specialty, you can add 1 die to the roll.
Okay.
Which is not, gigantic. It's not going to make or break you at any point. So it's perfectly fine if you're just trying to gore people all the time.
All the time.
I mean, you're a wandering boar hero, so.
Yeah. People don't invite me round much.
There's very few problems that goring someone won't actually solve. It just creates more problems for you.
Luckily, I enjoy those problems. It's what keeps me getting hired.
Like Molotov cocktails in The Good Place.
Okay. The next step is step 5, merits, and is to choose 10 dots of merits. But at this stage, we also can choose the solar bond. So let's talk about the solar bond first for a moment. So in the first stage, after the gods won the war against the primordials, the ones who came before, they said, Exalted, you have the run of creation. You can rule it as you see fit. You have the divine blessing of the heavens. But they didn't actually tell them what to do, and the Exalted probably wouldn't have listened anyway if they had. So the Solars, being, shiny god kings, kind of immediately set up shop and started doing things. But they very, very quickly ran into problems with the other types of Exalted, the subtle sidereals, the numerous and plentiful dragon-blooded, and especially the Lunars. And in one of the changes we've made to the sort of lore and the backstory of 3rd edition, we talk about how the Lunars, especially in the very early days of creation, were significant problems to Solar's sort of setting up and rule, and they eventually became locked into a civil war that sort of consumed the entire Exalted host.
Oh.
And so as a compromise between the two, the Lunars who wanted freedom and the Solars who sort of had the lawgiver order presence to them, a series of sacred marriages were made to mystically pair together sun and moon. Not every Solar and Lunar engaged in a sacred marriage, and it didn't even have to be a marriage. We use sacred marriage as a shorthand for any kind of paired bonding experience. It could have been a a martial arts mentor and a student. It could have been a military general and his greatest champion. It could have been a sorcerer and his Yojimbo, essentially. It could have been any number of paired relationships. But you can choose whether or not you have a deep spiritual tie to a solar. You can choose if you definitely have a solar bond. You can choose that you definitely don't have a solar bond, or you can leave it up to me to decide. Additionally, if you want to, you can say, I'd like to have a solar bond, but ever since the first age, my solar's reincarnation has become one of the two, shall we say, villain exalt types, abyssal or infernal. And you can say, I'm tied to one of them instead. And that's going to automatically sort of put you on a, not necessarily antagonistic, but definitely stepping off on a negative foot with your reincarnated mate. So
well, I like that though, because if this was about to lead into a full-blown story, I enjoy having some say in crafting my antagonist, my rival, if you like. It automatically gives me some buy-in to the campaign.
Okay. Do you like terrifying demons more, or do you like baroque ghosts more?
I enjoy terrifying demons. What can I say?
Okay, so your solar mate is now an infernal. Poof. At some point during our future campaign, you will run into your reincarnated mate and horrifically discover that they've been corrupted by the power of the Yozis.
Oh dear. So do I need to add this to my character sheet, or is this just something we will be noting mentally?
This is something we would be noting in a notes section of the sheet. If there's a second page of that, you can note it there, but otherwise we're just going to note it mentally and move on.
Okay, then. We'll do that.
Okay, so the actual step here is choosing merits. So besides the standard merits and exalted, there are also several lunar-only merits that we can choose. So I'm going to go through and talk a little bit about what some of your options are.
Oh yeah, no need to go through the whole list. Tell me what you think might appeal to me as a player based on this character.
Well, so let's start with the actual concept. So you talked about the appeal of being worshipped as a living deity. So cult would definitely be a big benefit to you. It essentially means that people directly venerate you as an object of worship. A one-dot cult comprises a few full-time priests, a handful of devout worshippers. A two-dot cult spans several hundred individuals, perhaps an entire large village.
Oh, wow, that's quite an expansion.
A three-dot cult means the character is venerated throughout a significant region, or perhaps openly rules a mighty city-state as its god king. Although this would require additional merits to represent such influence. It sounds more like your character's really more around the two-dot range.
I was going to say, yeah, I don't think he's the kind of person that's going to, what's the word? He's not going to coddle his worshippers at all, or he's someone that you potentially pray to or leave offerings to so that he defends the town. He's not going to be visiting blessings upon these people. So two dots and cult suits me.
Okay. Do you see your character as particularly large in his natural form? Do you see him as like having a lot of people always accompanying him? Are the people accompanying him hangers-on, or are they specifically, soldiers under his command? How do you? Because he has a fairly sizable war ability.
Yeah, he does have a sizable war ability. He also has a sizable charisma. So I think having actual soldiers, mortal generals, and the like to handle the little stuff is probably what appeals to him. I could well imagine later on in this character's life, he's going to be the kind of champion that only really gets out of bed to fight another monster of his size or greater, and he just lets the little people do everything else. He's not turning into a very nice person, but at this point,
He's not dissimilar to a lot of the Elder Lunars in the setting. I'll tell you that much.
Well, I've clearly got the right idea then.
No, I mean
So,
they're fairly active. Being an exalt, there are lazy exalts. There are no passive exalts.
well,
Exalted have something called essence fever within them that sort of burns them to make a difference and drives them ever onward.
yeah,
So.
well, he's definitely not lazy yet. He enjoys the fight a little too much. He's a young Robert Baratheon.
Okay, okay, that's a really good view of him. Okay, so command is the merit that represents being a commander of an organized military force of some sort, whereas followers represents a number of mortal followers with some particular form of expertise, which but does not include soldiers, basically.
Okay. I think command is probably more likely. I don't think he would be at all interested in having followers that weren't military. Leaning more into that Baratheon mindset, he probably takes a great deal of enjoyment out of war. You know, the sheer thrill of it, and having to deal with civilians is probably quite boring to him.
Okay.
Command may be the better option here.
All right. So at 2 dots, this merit provides a military force of size 3, might 0, and average drill. And I forget how big size 3 actually is. Battle groups, battle group traits. Size 3 is a moderate group, a mercenary company, a talon to a wing of realm legionnaires, or war band. So about 100 combatants. That sounds about
Yeah.
right.
Okay, so that's 2 dots again, is it?
Yes.
Lovely. So we have a cult and we have a command.
Okay, so let me ask you, do you see your characters having any kind of a blessed weaponry or some sort of artifact that grants them enhanced magical powers?
Not in the form of a weapon, as we've ascertained he's more of a hand-to-hand kind of combatant, but perhaps potentially in the form of armor. It's possible maybe he wears the hide of an enemy that he's slain, or the furs of a great beast that he conquered.
So Lunars actually, in their crafting charms, have several charms that grant bonuses whenever they've hunted and slain something and incorporate some relic or some piece of that hunted enemy into their artifact. So if you track down a rogue solar or something like that and tempered your Diclave in his blood, it would have additional powers if you're a lunar. Or if you hunted, say a great unicorn or something and took its horn, that would be part of that. I should note that there are artifacts that are still very useful for your brawl character. There's artifacts called Smash Fists, which are essentially giant gauntlets.
Mm-hmm.
Or Slayer Katars, which are big, they're Katars, basically. So, but if you see yourself wearing more armor, do you see yourself wearing more like giant plate or anything in particular, or some kind of art, like some kind of chain?
That's a good question. For some reason, I'm getting very much an S&M feel from this character now. It's going to be all about leather straps. So let's think of Broken Tusk wearing. I think hides and furs works the best for him. He's not going to be wearing heavy plates at all. Maybe that's because in his ego, he likes for his followers to be able to see him. And he feels like if he's hidden away behind plate mail, it could be any old wereball.
Okay. So that would probably, I mean, if it's artifact armor, if he hunted some sort of great beast and he took its hide and he either made it himself or took it to a no moon, and said, "Hey, make me a suit of armor," and they said, "Sure, buddy, you're part of the Silver Pact. That's what you can do." That would probably be reinforced Reinforced buff jacket, I think is what it would be. Made with leather from some vast and powerful creature, reinforced with plates and rivets from one or more magical materials. This armor is both tough and flexible. That sounds about right to you?
That's to me, yeah.
That's artifact medium armor. So you should note on your sheet, perhaps on the second page.
Okay.
That's a 3-dot artifact.
Mm-hmm.
It's so quiet. I just want to let you guys know that everybody's terrified of young S&M Robert Baratheon Boar. Robert Baratheon, like, I don't...
Oh,
what
God.
are you doing?
This isn't intentional, but the boar is really coming through and everything, isn't it?
You guys are terrified of him. He's in my campaign.
What fun we will have.
People are hoping that it's more like leather straps is in like Final Fantasy Kingdom Hearts as opposed to like legit S&M. You know?
No, it's more to the wrestling fans who are watching, so not Dixie. I see it more as a Demolition, a tag team from the late 1980s. So look them up if you like. Demolition, WWF. So I think as well he probably crafted this armor himself. Now, as he has no points in craft, that means he has a real raggedy, tatty suit of armor. You know, this isn't good to look at, but he's proud of it. It's his piece of work.
Well, if he crafted it himself, typically you can't craft artifact armor without a dot in craft.
Oh, okay.
We could, however, just simply say that either it was gifted to him out of a piece of an animal he stole, or it's been magically blessed by Luna.
No, you know what? As you mentioned, we can improve abilities with bonus points. I assume that comes at the end. So
we could also
keep in mind that I want to put a point in craft.
Okay, we could also buy up points in contacts to represent your broader connection to the Silver Pact. That you have a friend who crafted it for you, or a boon companion, or that sort of thing.
Okay, I think our Baratheon has got to have some friends. Maybe he knows a were-rhino.
Yes. So we'll take a look at connections real quick, and then we will look at some of the lunar merits that you can specifically take.
What do you think, Dixie? Do you think Bebop or Rocksteady is the more able tailor of the pair?
I have no idea how to answer that question.
Oh, which one dresses best?
Only one of them is a boar, so why?
Oh, well, no, because we were saying that Broken Tusk here probably has a connection. I don't think I'm going to go the full Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Gamma World thing where he has a were-rhino as a best buddy. But it would be nice if there's another Lunar who crafted his leather armor for him.
True. We could say that he has a rhinoceros lunar friend who did that.
Yeah. Okay. 1-dot contacts are generally confined to a single city, state, or similar region. 3-dot contacts may span a broad area or indicate an organization with a vast and specific reach and influence, such as the Silver Pact. While 5-dot contacts mean that almost anywhere the character goes within a direction, you'll be able to find applicable contacts within the purchased field.
Well, I think 3 is fair then, because he isn't going to be known globally. He's very much a regional hero, but within the Silver Pact, he's probably known for one reason or other. He's that S&M boar. That is probably how he's sometimes known. Now, with those points purchased, I've actually spent my 10 points of merits.
Somebody wants to know if that would be allies and not contacts. If not, explain why.
That might actually be allies. So allies are more specific, noteworthy storyteller controlled allies, close friend or trusted companion with some useful capabilities. Mm-hmm. A 1-dot would grant you a mortal or a very minor supernatural ally. 3 dots grants you a supernatural ally at least as powerful as a young terrestrial, whereas 5 dots grants a supernatural ally as powerful as one of the celestial exalted. You could definitely
have enough dots for that, do I?
No, you could definitely do. I mean, you could definitely buy it up with bonus points. Absolutely.
Okay, well, I'm going to make a note of that then, because I'd like to come back to it. I'd still like to have the contacts that are almost a reflection of reputation, as well as my ability to squeeze information out of people. But I'm noted allies down because I think that's where my my contacts among other Lunars can come in.
Okay.
All right then. So what follows merits, Neil?
Well, I should note that there are two other merits that you might want to do. You might want to make a note about when you come down to your bonus points. They are specifically lunar merits. One is called Heart's Blood, and the other one is called Stolen Faces. Heart's Blood indicates a lunar with several animal forms of character creation in addition to your spirit shape. Stolen Faces indicates you have human shapes in your library. Now,
oh wow.
All lunars have the ability to ritualistically hunt an animal or a person, and upon personally slaying them and drinking their heart's blood, they can take their form. Now, that's an option all lunars have. Every single attribute gives you one or two different ways to actually take someone's heart's blood without actually killing them. One way might be you engage in a game of chance with them. And if you win the game of chance, you are able to take their form. You win their face in a game of dice. Or another charm is you are so good of a thief that when you enter into their guarded manse or whatever, and you leave some mark of your passing and leave without them ever detecting you, you have violated their sense of safety and can take their identity with it. So almost like a Mask of Zorro type thing.
Yeah.
Like you leave the big Z on the wall, and they're like, "Oh, Zorro was here, and we never found him." Then
so I
yeah,
guess I would use my tusks to score my territory.
That could be a charm you take if that's something you want to do. If you are warring against the dragon blooded, then they have a number of richly appointed manses all over the threshold and all over the east. So that's definitely something you could absolutely do for your character. So Heart's Blood and Stolen Faces represents any number of animal forms or any number of human forms that you have previously hunted before the story begins.
Yeah, they're pretty dark, aren't they, as concepts? I quite like it.
Yeah.
It's darker than I thought Exalted would go, and this shows my lack of knowledge regarding the game. Obviously, I saw it as quite happy-go-lucky, smashy, and blow-up things anime.
No. Don't get me wrong. Any good Exalted game will incorporate that into it at some point, because that's the way things go. In my last Exalted game, one of the characters was playing an expert swordsman, and he was fighting a flying shark, a flying fog shark, and the shark actually bit his arm off with a very lucky roll on my part. And he was so angered by this that he took his sword and cleaved the shark open and reached in and snatched his arm back out. And then the Eclipse cast said, "Yeah, I can sew it back on. It'll be fine. It'll be as good as new." And it was, because solar medicine can do that sort of thing. But yeah, both the player and the character were extremely irked by his sudden lack of an arm, and he wanted it back.
I could see it. I can understand that.
Yeah.
Okay, so what follows our merits?
Hang on. I've got breaking news here, y'all. From the Exalted Slack. It is supposed to be 4 specialties. We messed up. Didn't change it in the manuscript.
My God.
Wow. Wow.
I just confirmed that with Vance and Eric. Like, it's supposed to be 4. Vance was in the Discord going, I didn't change that. Oh shit. So
I didn't think that they'd leave me out to dry like this, but
you heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen.
We just left them out to dry.
Well, in that case, I think where should I put my 4th speciality? War seems appropriate.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to, for the time being, put this down as I know we've taken command as a merit. but can I put command down as a specialty of war? So,
Not entirely sure.
or is this more my ability to assess tactics and strategy?
Yeah, war is the ability of understanding tactics and strategy. It's used to direct the long-term progress of a war, plan gap battles to gain the upper hand over enemy forces, and to directly command soldiers or warriors. So yeah, you could take command as a valid specialty. That sounds fine.
Yeah, okay.
It'll actually come into play during certain actions in mass combat.
Lovely.
So,
because again, as we've talked about, sort of envisioning the long-term path of this character and him becoming an increasingly sedentary warlord, it will be interesting almost to see which skills become redundant. When we revisit this character in 10 years' time and do Exalted 4th edition, we will we'll see how it goes.
People's hopes up.
But for the moment, yeah, you're a full moon, and full moons typically lead from the front.
Yeah.
So that's a stereotype, but that's useful in designing a character.
Yeah, well, I think this character is definitely a lead from the front at this time in his life.
Okay. So, accepting no other surprises in here, charms. Oh, this is going to be real fun because you don't have the list of charms in front of you.
No, but that means I'm relying on you, Neil, to tell me which charms I should take and explain to the listeners, why they're so good.
What's even better is that we haven't previewed the strength or stamina charms yet. So
no, and that's going to be most of what you're going to be taking, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming that you have those lists, right, Neil?
Oh yeah. Oh, I have everything, and I've been taunting the Discord with it, and now the chickens have come home to roost. Well, the boars have come home to gore.
Let's preview some strength and stamina charms. Let's go for it.
Yeah, let's go whole hog with them.
Oh my god, I told you not to make that joke.
Don't be such a bore, Neil.
Oh!
I hate you both.
Okay.
Jesus.
All right, so we get 15 charms. You may choose martial arts charms or evocations in place of your lunar charms. You can't buy martial arts charms because you didn't buy the merit because I told you not to.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't fit your character. Evocations are essentially artifact charms. So all the Exalted have charms that sort of express their essential nature. Solars, the Unconquered Sun is a god of war and supernatural puissance. And supernal ability. So all of the charms are about being really excellent at something and doing something beyond human ken, or better than any human possibly could. A lot of lunar charms are about shape-shifting and tapping into primal instinct and being able to do things with shadows and trickery that no other Exalt type is. Evocations, on the other hand, derive their power from the power of the item in there. So, for example, let's say you have your hide armor, right? And let's say you hunted some, I don't know, great bear or something like that for it. You could tap into the power of that bear by the thematics of your armor. And you could make charms that are either, that are somewhat similar to your own thematics, but can also be fairly different because they're expressing something slightly outside of your Malo.
Yeah. And I think that would be. I can hear my voice. How very odd. I think that would be a good way to go. It would reflect why the armor I wear is actually interesting. It isn't the hide of another wereball, it's the hide of something else. So yeah, I like that idea.
Okay. Okay, we'll cover that once we've gotten a couple of your charms down. We'll dip back over to evocations.
No, let's just go ahead and peek behind that curtain. Neil just sent an all caps message to the Exalted Slack that said, "Send me the artifacts now, please."
Wow. Thanks for calling me out to the Discord and everyone, Dixie.
I
How
can't
many people are
stop
going to watch this
laughing.
channel?
There's 54 people watching it right now, so who knows?
A peek behind the curtain there, the way the magic is made.
We're not perfect. Anybody that's heard the podcast knows that we are constantly like, I have to look that up, actually. It's fine.
Have we actually previewed these yet? These
I don't keep track of my own
artifacts?
Kickstarters. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Well, for the time being, so let's not look at artifacts right now while we're waiting for this to come across.
Right.
Let's go through some charms we do have immediate access to. Bear in
Okay.
mind, we're just going to make an interesting character. So what are some interesting charms?
So the simplest manifestations of lunar power are excellencies. Lunars can add dice to an attribute plus ability roll, which is every roll in pretty much every roll in the Storyteller engine, for 1 mote each with that attribute's excellency. So 1 mote per die. You may also use excellencies to raise your static values. So you can use it to be, tougher or more agile, or better at parrying, that sort of thing, or more stubborn. And you typically can't add more than attribute dice to a roll. So if you had strength, you couldn't add more than 4 dice to a roll, or half that for static values. However, lunars can increase their dice cap with stunts. Now, a stunt in the Exalted system grants you extra dice and also extra successes, and may regenerate your willpower a little bit, depending on how you use it. But it essentially is you're describing your character's action in a particularly evocative way that lets everyone at the table picture it. Rather than just saying "I punch him," you say my character's feet raises a furrow of dirt on the ground as he swings his leg back. He tilts his entire body and puts every muscle, fiber, and sinew into his punch.
You saying that has just reminded me of around the time I first got into tabletop role playing, and it wasn't long after that Exalted First Edition came out. And I remember a group of players at my gaming club were playing Exalted, and that was literally all I heard about it. It was all I knew about it, that the better you describe the action you're taking, the more dice you get to roll, essentially. And I loved that idea, and then never got a chance to play it. So you've brought back a memory from my giddy youth.
So, in describing that, you can increase your dice cap by adding your rating in a second attribute, one that's appropriate to the stunt, to your rating, and the one that's the action used to determine the dice's total limit. The example we use in the text is if you stunt a dexterity roll for a foot race by describing how your striking looks catch a rival off guard, you just like lean back and wink at them, then you could add dexterity plus appearance dice. If I was describing your character's punch right then. If you talk about how his haunches curl down into iron howsers, and he braces himself completely immovable, you might be able to conceivably add stamina to it. A good rule of thumb with stunts is if you're just describing it, more than in just a basic way, it's a level 1 stunt. If you use the environment in some way, bounding up a wall or grasping a flag, and throwing it into someone's face, that sort of thing, it generally is worth a level 2 stunt. And the benchmark for level 3 stunts has always been the entire table goes, "Whoa, that's awesome." Or claps and laughs. The type of thing you would give an extra experience point in another game are level 3 stunts in Exalted.
Okay.
So, and typically you don't get one or more than 1 or 2 of those a session. So, if that. So, the strength and stamina excellencies have additional uses, which is good for you because you're a full moon. The strength excellency can be used to add dice to a withering damage roll, and the stamina excellency can be used to raise soak. Now, you know what soak is. You've played a million of these games.
Yeah.
Exalted essentially has 2 different types of attacks. You have withering and decisive. Withering is meant to represent the sort of rapid back and forth parry that you see in a lot of martial arts movies, you see in a lot of swordplay movies, you see in any kind of decided fight scene of two characters going at one another and never being able to quite land a telling blow. Withering attacks are generally presumed to be still deadly attacks. You're still trying to kill the guy, but it may also be a series of feints to set up a later attack. It may also be any number of things to throw your guy off guard to land for what's called a decisive attack. Withering attacks essentially treat your initiative score as a health level, and you steal initiative from someone else, but they can steal it right back from you on their action if they want to. So you're sort of trading it back and forth. When one of you gets more than the other, you essentially take your initiative track and dump that into pure damage dice in what's called a decisive attack. So a lot of Exalted relies on making little tiny attacks to build up a decent initiative track and then smacking them with it.
I like that. I can picture that quite clearly in my mind, the way of being in a fight with an opponent in a game like this, where you're dodging so many or you're just tapping your opponent enough times that eventually they're exhausted. And of course, that gives you the opening to lay the finishing blow.
Right.
So yeah, I like the sound of that.
Okay. So you should note that you automatically gain the excellency of each of your cast or favorite abilities that you have rated at 3+, or for which you know at least one charm. So if you pick up a dexterity charm at some point, you'll get you'll get the dexterity excellency. No, actually you won't, because that's technically not your cast or favorite attribute. Never mind.
No, my favorite attributes are strength, stamina, charisma, and wits.
Yes, that is true. Actually, that's a... Yeah, no, okay. You choose 2 attributes from the list as your cast attributes. Okay. I was mistaken for a moment. It's one of those first and second edition things that's still creeping around in my brain. So forgive me, Exalted Discord.
Purge it.
Yeah, I'm trying. I'm trying so hard.
The Exalted Discord never forgives.
No, they don't.
They never forget.
No. It's all in Discord. It's all, everything's in there. Okay. All right. So let me see which of your, can you scroll up for a moment to see your...
Oh, yeah, sure.
There you go. So you definitely have the strength and stamina excellencies. You definitely have the charisma and wits excellencies.
Mm-hmm.
And that should be about it.
Incorrected. The Exalted Discord is incredibly forgiving, and they're all very nice.
Yes, enjoying today.
So for any other attribute, you must either have it rated at 5 or know 2 charms to unlock its excellencies. So you could buy up. You can buy up any other attributes during with bonus dice at the end of character creation, or we can just say I want 2 dexterity charms, and poof, you get it. You'll get its excellency.
Well, I think for the time being, we're all right with what we have. The balance that I've achieved with strength, stamina, charisma, and wits is pleasing me, and I can well see myself assigning bonus points to my merits and abilities before I do to my attributes.
Okay. So it helps when you're building a character to sort of have an idea of what you're building towards, and that will, as you look through the charms, you'll sort of find yourself picking out concepts that fit with it. So you mentioned wanting to build a were character, essentially. Werebore was your original concept, yes?
Yes.
So since time immemorial, there has been one giant were charm in Exalted for the Lunars called Deadly Beastman Transformation. It's a strength charm, and it's pretty cool. However, it does have some prerequisites, especially hybrid body transformation, which is a generic charm, which means anyone favors it. So
hybrid body transformation, did you say?
Yes, so that should probably be your first one. So the hybrid form combines your human self and your spirit shape. So you basically still look like you, but you might be a little broader, a little more muscular, a little more of a rounded gut. You grow hirsute, you grow tusks, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. You choose 6 dots of mutations reflecting your spirit shape.
Oh wow!
And since I actually have the mutations here, I'm probably just gonna tell you what you have.
Yeah, please prescribe them.
So okay, let's see. Anyone else wants to call out some? But I know deadly weaponry is definitely going to be one of them. So that's 1 dot. It's a dangerous natural weapon like piercing tusks, which you totally have.
Where do I put these dots? Just where it says effect? Shall I just put a?
Let me see. Yeah, just do effect. Just do just write deadly weaponry 1.
Okay.
Somebody's recommended unnatural hide.
Yes, that would actually be very good. That's from the core book.
That's from Praxis Cat.
Unnatural. What was that? Sorry.
Unnatural hide. I think it's unnatural hide. Where is that? If someone can do it, my PDF is
Was that in the core book? I don't know.
I thought it was in the core book.
Do you need me to pull this spore off the shelf right now? Because that's a ridiculous thing to flip through.
No, I'm doing it right now. You might also want giant if you want it.
Yeah, that suits my character.
Okay.
It's apparently an unusual hide, maybe.
Just an unusual hide, maybe.
Page 166.
And literally, as I just scroll onto it, we find it. 1 or 2 dots generally represents fur, feathers, leaves, or light scales, and it adds additional points of natural soak equal to your value. So it'll stack with the hide you're already wearing.
Oh wow! Okay, yeah, let's take that.
So okay, so unusual hide. So that's going to be 2 points. Deadly weapon release 3. That means, so actually no, let's put it at 1. Just a natural hide of 1. And then giant is 4 dots. So 4, 5, 6. So your hybrid form is a massive boar man. Your hirsute, you have tusks.
Man, bear, pig.
Man, bear, pig.
That's what I said earlier. You can steal my joke.
Now no one will know.
Okay. Deadly beast man transformation. Let's see. Should I read it out as a sort of...
Yeah, please do.
Go for it.
Okay. So that's going to cost 1 mote, 1 willpower. Under the cost there. And Deadly Beastman Transformation. The Lunar's flesh and essence swell with the unleashed power of her almighty rage, assuming a dread war form. To use this charm, hybrid body transformation must be active, so you have to go half beast to go full beast. The Lunar adds strength dice on withering damage rolls, feats of strength and movement actions, and gains strength natural soak. Wow. You also treat your strength as essence higher for determining what feats of strength you may attempt. So
you suddenly become a danger to civilization, I think.
Oh yeah, no, you'll be ripping down gates with strength 5. You suffer a -1 defense penalty that can't be negated by any means. Now, it's worth noting that if we're going to take evocations later, the Warform's immense internal power is incompatible with the external power of evocations. You temporarily lose the benefits of resonance and become dissonant with any artifact you're not normally resonant with. Now, what does that mean?
Is it a pop quiz?
No, yeah, it was a rhetorical question. I'm going to explain to him what it means. So, for different artifacts, you have magical materials that are sort of resonant with your exalted type. Lunars have moon silver, abyssals have soul steel, dragon blooded have jade. That means that your evocations, the charms, are particularly powerful when you're used by someone who's resonant with that material. So if you have a jade, if you, the Lunar, have a jade war club, it's not going to be quite as good as it would be in the hands of a dragon blooded who is already resonant with that. Solars are specifically resonant with everything because they're solars and they're just great. And other exalt types have certain tricks to get around that. For example, there's going to be a couple charms in here that let you use the evocations of your solar mate as resonant if it's made of orichalcum, which is the solar metal. But what that basically means is that even though your hide is moon silver, if you're taking evocations from it that are resonant or have a resonant effect, it gets downgraded by 1. Basically, it gets downgraded to the normal version. And if you were wearing something made of jade, for example, it would get downgraded to being dissonant, which is a weaker version of it. So just something to be aware of as we kind of keep going.
Okay.
So, and hybrid body transformation actually also has a cost. That's going to be 4 motes.
So, Deadly Beastman transformation is 1 mote, 1 willpower, and
Yep.
hybrid body is 4 motes.
Correct. Hybrid body is also a simple under type, and the duration is indefinite.
Oh, okay. Is it indefinite in the sense that once it's activated, that's it for life, or indefinite in the sense that I can turn it off whenever I like?
You can turn off whenever you like. Those motes are considered committed, which means they're sort of taken out of your pool and they're constantly powering the charm.
Okay.
And the duration of Deadly Beastman transformation is 1 scene, and it is also a simple charm.
Okay.
All right. So now we're going to talk about what you actually see your lunars kind of doing. What you're kind of doing. You mentioned Berserker. If I recall. Berserker.
Berserker.
Well, there is a stamina charm called Relentless Lunar Fury. The lunar unleashes the primal rage howling in her soul, drawing terrifying power from her fury. This charm can only be used when the lunar takes decisive damage. You enter Berserk Rage, having all wound and crippling penalties, and gaining 1 initiative whenever you suffer further decisive damage. It doesn't prevent you from making tactical or intelligent decisions, but you cannot withdraw. You can't use social influence for purposes unrelated to combat, and you can't cease fighting until all enemies are incapacitated or have fled.
Well, while I think it's unlikely that my character is ever going to take a decisive wound, it's useful to have a backup. So let's go for this one.
Okay. Relentless Lunar Fury is a reflexive charm.
Okay.
Which means you can be used at pretty much any time. The duration is 1 scene.
What's the cost?
The cost is 3 motes, 1 willpower.
This YouTube chat has mentioned both Deadly Claw Blow and something called Halt the Scarlet Flow.
Yes.
I don't know everything, so I'm just
Halting the Scarlet Flow will also be very useful combined with Relentless Lunar Fury. I was looking at a couple other charms very quickly.
Also, I have a cat now. If anybody wants to see the cat, this is the cat. Hello, cat. Look, it's
hi,
Apollo.
Cat.
It's not Bebop, weirdly.
Mr. Apollo.
This stream is only big enough for 1 Bebop.
Okay, so Halting the Scarlet Flow is a very good. You know what I'm doing? You know what? I've actually completely forgotten where I came from, and this is again a 1st and 2nd edition problem. You mentioned before that your character is unlikely to take a decisive wound. That's not entirely true. At some point, you're gonna get hit.
Mm-hmm.
The Exalted are far tougher than normal mortals, and they have a charm that's pretty universal called Ox Body Technique that just gives them more health levels. And if you have Stamina 5, it gives you a lot more health levels, especially if you're a Lunar. I think the Lunar version, I think, is actually better than the Solar version, which is one of the only places where that's actually true for anything anywhere. Well, so let's see. Ox Body. There we go. Ox Body Technique. It's always been recommended in every edition of Exalted that you take at least 1 Ox Body Technique. That's never been precisely true before 3rd edition. Like, I'll just be honest about that. Like, you could get away with not getting Ox Body Technique. You really honestly should have Ox Body Technique. And you can purchase it more than once. So it's permanent. There's no cost to it.
Okay. Its duration is permanent as well.
Yeah, so you gain additional health levels based on your stamina rating. You gain 1 -1, 1 -2, and 2 -4s.
Two -4s.
Yep.
Wonderful thing is, when this recording is done, I can go back to it and listen to it and add anything I've missed.
That should be 1 -2. My mistake.
1 -2 and 2 -4s.
No. I'm sorry. Like, let me rephrase. 1 -1, 1 -2, and 2 -4s.
Lovely. Okay.
Okay. If you like, you can purchase it a number of times if you want to be incredibly buff.
Well, buff is the stuff. So let's purchase it one more time.
Okay. And just double all of those values.
Wonderful. What am I doing? So as in double the number of -1s, -2s, -4s. Lovely. Okay.
Now, the charm that they were mentioning earlier, called Halting the Scarlet Flow, the lunar shapeshifts wounds away, closing cuts and healing bruises. You heal 1 level of non-aggravated damage at the start of each of your turns. The turn ends if you're crashed, which means if you're reduced to initiative 0. And it can't be used outside of combat. So once you're outside of the ebb and flow, it just doesn't work as well.
I assume this is a reflexive one.
It is. The duration is stamina turns, so 5 turns for you.
And the cost?
The cost is 6 motes, 1 willpower.
Okay. And how many charms did you say we have?
You have 15.
Wow. Okay. Well, in that case, we have so far done 6 if Oxbody Technique has been purchased twice.
Welcome to Exalted.
Yes.
Well, no. This is quite good fun. I mean, obviously, when I have the book in front of me, this is going to be a fun little shopping list. But for the time being, I'm interested to find out all the different ways you can augment your character.
So let's look at a couple. I'm sorry, Dixie.
I was gonna say, I think someone did the math a while back in the Slack, and there's like, even just for 3rd edition, there's been like just so many hundreds of thousands words of charms. It's ridiculous already.
Yeah. Sometime I'll tell the Exalted Discord about my attempt to build an Exalted neural net that'll just write charms, but we're almost there. We almost have the number of words we need. So, okay. So what I think we should do is we should take a look at the 3 aspects of your character that you really care about. You care about being tough, you care about being strong, and you care about kind of being a war leader.
Yes.
Right? So let's definitely try to at least get a couple of charms from each of your favored attributes and your cast attributes. So we've done 6 so far. So we can do 2 strength, 2 stamina, 2 wits, and 2 charisma. So
we're still suggesting Deadly Claw Blow.
Deadly Claw Blow, we'll get to it. Okay, Deadly.
Well, I'm just reminding you, I'm supposed to be the interface between the chat and y'all.
Okay, so
you're welcome.
Okay, Deadly Claw Blow. It doesn't have a cost. It is supplemental. Thews surging with savage might. The lunar deals a telling blow. Use strength instead of dexterity to roll an attack with a non-ranged heavy weapon or a non-ranged weapon with the natural tag, which does include your tusks, includes your hands.
Oh, okay.
As well. So that means instead of rolling dexterity, which is a measly 2, you're rolling 5 dice to attack.
Yep, so, I think this one was a must for me. And what's the duration on this?
That is permanent. No, I'm sorry. It is instant. My mistake. It still counts as a charm activation, but it does not have a cost to it.
Okay. And let's go for one more strength-based charm.
Okay, so let's look at a couple here. Ferocious Biting Tooth will make you stronger there. Pillar Hefting Grasp will mean you can turn anything to an improvised weapon. Do
we have anything tusk-based?
I'm looking.
Because if not, I'm just saying this Lunar's book doesn't have nearly enough charms in.
You know what? Ferocious Biting Tooth is a really good one. And it counts in there. You lash out with Strength Born of Fury. You add Essence Overwhelming on a Withering attack, or adds the lower of Essence or Strength attack roll extra successes on a decisive attack as dice of damage.
Okay, so what type is that?
That is a supplemental, and it costs 2 motes. You can also deal lethal damage with barehanded decisive attacks, which actually makes total sense for you as a character. So that's pretty perfect.
And the duration, is that an instant one?
It is instant.
Okay, then. So on to stamina-based charms.
Okay. We're going to look for some defensive charms in here. Okay. Well, so here's remember I was telling you about the other ways to claim a human spirit shape? Here's an interesting one called Hero's Heart Challenge. Testing her fortitude against a worthy rival, the Lunar claims his face as a trophy of her triumph. She performs a sacred hunt to steal a human shape by challenging him to physical contest, a foot race, wrestling match, duel, drinking contest, etc. If the Lunar wins, she may conclude the sacred hunt and claim her opponent's form by accepting a major tie of respect towards the opponent. If she deems him unworthy of respect, she can't gain his form. So as long as you're fighting an actual worthy opponent and you beat them, you can take their face.
I think that's very much what this character is about.
Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. So that's that has no cost. It is a permanent charm.
So yes, I invite the strongest warriors from across the land to my little fiefdom, and we wrestle in the mud.
Okay. With defense, okay, so there's two ways we can go with defense here. If we only have to choose one. We can go with impenetrable beast armor, which thickens your skin, taking on thick hide, bony plates, or tough scales. Or we could go with what's called steel paw style, which means you can use stamina instead of dexterity to calculate your parry, and you can do it barehanded.
Oh, let's go for that.
Okay.
Steel paw style.
Yeah. You have plenty of health levels, and you also can regenerate some, and you're going to rely more on just burning excellencies not to get hit and just smacking stuff out of the way.
Okay. Whoops. And duration?
It's permanent.
Permanent. Wow. Okay. And so no cost for that either?
Nope.
Oh, I feel very defended. So that just leaves us with 2 wits charms and 2 charisma charms.
Okay. Oh, let's see here. Wits. What will be good for you?
If anybody has any suggestions in the chat, throw them out. Wits, charisma, whatever.
Yes,
you've all probably read the document way more than I have at this point.
The witty door.
Well, so there's cool stuff in warfare that deals with appearance, and there's also cool stuff that deals with wits. So we could branch out and have you give you an appearance charm. One is called Glorious Battle Presence that requires an appearance of 2.
We do have an appearance of 2.
Okay. The Lunar leads her pack from the front line, inspiring them with her might. She rerolls strength failed dice on an appearance-based command roll. If this leaves her roll without any 1s and at least 1 10, she gains 1 initiative. And strength is one of your best attributes in there. So you have a combined pool of appearance plus warfare of 5. So you could essentially reroll any failed dice you have in your dice roll.
That's a nice. What would I call it? I guess it's a nice luck buff. So what do I call that one?
It's Glorious Battle Presence.
Somebody in the chat thinks you should invest in a martial art.
I don't know. I see this character as more just charging into the fray. Maybe a martial art is something he would learn on the course of his journey. I think that could be an interesting arc for a character like this, to meet another Lunar who actually thinks he needs to refine his way of fighting. So Glorious Battle Presence.
Yes, another
this one.
That is supplemental, and the cost is 4 motes.
People watching this may wonder, why am I noting all this? I fully intend to use this character.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And the duration?
The duration is supplement. I'm sorry, the duration's instant.
Instant, okay.
Yep. And I think if we're going to go with the command stuff, then your next charisma charm should be Pack Leader Attitude.
Somebody mentioned something called Grudge Nursing Resentment. I don't know if that's a real charm or not, because all charm names sound like made-up things to me.
Fine. That's a wits one. Oh, no, that's really good, actually.
Okay, well, let's deal with this charisma one first. So what was it called? Pack?
Pack Leader Attitude.
Okay, and what does that do for me?
It's the Lunar roars over the din of battle to lead her forces. She adds higher of essence or 3 bonus dice to a charisma-based command action. With initiative 12 plus, she also rerolls 1s until they cease to appear.
Okay, again, nice. That will set me up nicely. So I'm not always going to be on the back foot in a battle.
No.
Actually,
you're a fairly effective war leader already.
So type again, supplemental.
Yes, and the cost is 2 motes.
Are all of these attribute-based ones supplemental?
No, several of them are reflexive, which means, especially the defensive ones, which means they can be used at any time. And some are simple, which means that is your action to do that thing.
Right.
Charms for solars, especially at the lower levels, aren't exactly like spells you cast. They're not precisely techniques, for example. They may be an esoteric technique, but your essence flowing through you is what causes the magic to happen. In other words, you're not shouting out the names of charms if you pick up a mighty barrel full of sand and throw it at someone with your mighty thews. Your essence is channeling through your muscles in a certain way. That kind of falls away at some of the higher levels as you become more esoteric, as you do things that are a little interesting. Solars can kind of create a spirit repelling mudra, and especially the dragon blooded have a lot of simple charms that are blatantly supernatural and don't really relate to any kind of amazing ability. But for Lunars, a lot of what they can do relates to their shape shifting. So,
okay. And what's the duration on Pack Leader Attitude?
Oh, that's a good question. Instant.
Instant. Okay, so let's get these wits charms done, and then we're very nearly done, I suspect.
Yeah. Grudge Nursing Resentment is actually a good suggestion. The Lunar's rage coils tight around her heart. She adds +2 resolve against any influence opposed by a negative tie, which basically means that if you have a negative sentiment towards something, and someone tries to convince you of it otherwise, which they might be able to do with enough dice thrown your way, you can double down on your hatred of that thing and be like, no, fuck that.
I like that.
Yeah. If the influence would weaken or alter that intimacy, this doesn't count as a charm bonus, which is good because you remember those dice caps I was talking about earlier. that means that you could add more excellency dice to resisting it as well, in addition to those dice that you get from that charm.
Okay. All right. So what's type, duration, and cost for Grudge Nursing Resentment?
It is reflexive. The duration is instant, and the cost is 2 motes. You are stubborn as a boar.
Oh, it's appropriate.
Yes.
The chat is also suggesting territory charms, thinking they would make sense for this character.
Oh, okay then. So let's go for 1 territory charm instead of that last wits one, shall we?
Yeah. Okay.
Just to throw you a curveball now. Because it's fun.
No, it's fine. There is one. The one is the big territory charm that might be very good for you. It can be learned as a wits or charisma charm, so they're both perfectly in theme for you. It's called Boundary Marking Meditation. It is simple. Duration is instant. The cost is 20 motes and 2 willpower.
Good Lord.
So, laying her mark upon the world, the lunar claims a land as hers. She claims a single contiguous region, no more than essence times 10, so 10 square miles for you, as her territory, which is bigger than a city. Basically, that's like that's a metropolitan area in our modern times, and that's a city-state in ancient times. Any mortal communities living in the territory must accept her presence. They need not make her leader, but must acknowledge her presence and that they lack the ability or desire to force her out. Finally, if any supernatural beings, such as spirits or fellow exalted, occupy the region and don't consent to her claiming it, the lunar must force them to submit by defeating them in combat or a similar challenge.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yes, that's a very good pick, I think.
Yeah.
Again, I don't necessarily see Broken Tusk as a terribly pleasant exalted, but there's no reason for him to be so. I think these charms definitely make up the character nicely, as do all the other points we've given him.
Okay.
So with that said, we have our charms, we have our abilities, our attributes, our merits. So now what is it? Just down to bonus dots?
No, there's one more step in here. Intimacies and limit trigger.
Oh, okay.
So intimacies represent your character's beliefs and relationships. They can represent your motivations, religious beliefs, worldview, friends and enemies, your moral code, a lot of other things. Many lunars have intimacies expressing their rage against some sort of injustice in the world. They have ties relating to Lunar, the Silver Pact, and their mentors within that, or the inhabitants of any lunar dominions they dwell in or have frequent contact with. So there's no real maximum on how many intimacies you choose, but I will actually describe to you the different types in just one moment. I pull them up in here. Okay. So there's 2 different types, basically. Ties describe your character's attachments to people, objects, organizations, or concrete entities. Like it might be the Silver Pact. Ties are generally written as the subject of the tie, followed by a parenthetical clarifier to establish context. So if I had a tie to you, it would be Matthew Friendship, or that sort of thing.
So there's like passions in Wraith the Oblivion.
Yes. Yes, actually very much like that. The other type of intimacy is called principles. They describe your character's beliefs and ideals, and they're generally written as a statement of the principle. Might be honesty is my watchword, or the immaculate philosophy is the true guide to righteous living. If you're, and most lunars might have, I don't know, freedom is the right of all sentient beings, that sort of thing.
Okay then. So and I can choose as many of these as I wish.
You can. They come in 3 levels of intensity: minor, major, and defining. Minor intimacies are notable parts of your character's worldview, but they only really come into play when the subject of the intimacy is directly relevant to you. Major hold more influence over your character, and defining intimacies hold sway over every aspect of your life. They're the pillars of your worldview, things you would lay down your life to protect. Intimacies help you regain willpower, and they also come into play in social interactions. And they can also grant you extra dice at times. with
Okay,
certain
then.
charms.
So let's go for one of each for each type of intimacy. So we'll have 3 principles and 3 of the other. So we'll start with the principles. I
Okay.
think defining one is, how does my character? Do you think my character is excessively proud?
What do you think about your character, Matthew? That's the important part.
He certainly seems to be. He certainly seems to be the type who's very self-reliant. His charms beseech someone who's physically tough, who's very stubborn, and who is constantly going around challenging people and constantly, you know, forcing them to live up to his standard rather than him living up to theirs.
So I'm actually going to go with never style principles.
Okay.
So rather than going for always challenge someone stronger than me, I'm going to go for never challenge an opponent weaker than me. I will always take a fight if someone is offering one, but I'm never going to start a fight with someone I think is weaker than me. And you could see that as a positive trait, or you could see it as a dismissive, you know, you're not worth my time. I imagine Broken Tusk probably thinks that's his most his most pleasant trait, that I'd never pick on someone smaller than me because I just don't care about them.
Let's for the minor one, why don't you choose a small detail of your character that you think would be unexpected, that would unexpectedly come out, like never cause injury to children, or never pass up a chance to smell the roses, something like that.
Never pass up the chance for a good bath.
Okay.
He's a very, very clean pig.
Yeah.
Pigs are actually shockingly clean.
Yeah. This one as well.
Yeah.
And they also eat garbage.
Don't judge.
I'm not judging. I'm making statements.
That's an interesting thing, Matthew, because you know, baths and bathhouses are definitely a staple of realm culture, which the Lunars are generally typically opposed to. But this definitely talks about your relationship to civilization. Like, you like civilization, it just has to kind of be on your terms and in a certain way. And there's no reason everyone shouldn't be able to enjoy a good bath.
Exactly. And maybe Broken Tusk particularly, maybe he at some point heard about these wonderful hot baths, these saunas, these steam rooms and the like, and the idea just transfixed him. Thought, I've got to have one of those. Can you imagine him just like lounging in some Turkish bath, like in his war form, with just, he's all hirsute and hairy, and the hair just floating a little bit in the water. And he expects generals to lounge in there with him as they discuss strategy. It's a way of putting them off their guard. But of course, it's the age-old way of you can't sneak a weapon into one of these places.
Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot.
So what were our other intimacies? So if those are
those are your principles. Ties are your attachments to people, objects, organizations, or concrete entities. And those are the ones that have the parenthetical that describes the emotional context. Okay, the emotional context can be as complex or as simple as you want it to be, as long as it can be expressed in like 1 or 2 words. Like it might be wary respect or abject terror or something like that.
Okay, for the sake of ease, I'm going to call the community that is within my territory Pigtown. I'm sure it would have a better name, but as far as I'm concerned, it's Pigtown.
Pigtown's fine.
So, despite the fact I am a boorish kind of character, I know we can go on and on and on. I think he does have a genuine sense of fondness that he's probably never going to express. So I think I'm going to say he actually has an affection for Pigtown. He may not express it often, but it is, to his mind, what defines him. It's why he keeps patrolling the land outside it, why he keeps protecting it. And while they may not appreciate it and they see him as someone to fear sometimes.
You know, Pigtown's like an actual part of Baltimore, right? It's an actual neighborhood in Baltimore.
Well, Broken Tusk is the protector of Baltimore. Pigtown, Baltimore.
Oh, here's Bebop. Look, hey, Bebop. Bebop.
Better looking than Broken Tusk, I think.
Okay, Silver Pact. So you've definitely at least had at least one positive encounter with the Silver Pact if you've had your tattoos fixed. In 3rd edition, we definitely tried to write the Silver Pact as something you might want to engage with. 1st edition assumed that pretty much everyone was part of the Silver Pact and had this sort of antagonistic stance where if you didn't agree to be part of the Silver Pact, they'd beat you up and fix your cast for you, which was kind of takes some agency away from your character. It's not the way Exalted usually wants to roll. 2nd edition had the Pact with a very positive but definitive social program to it. But it also led a lot of people to believe, like, I wouldn't actually want to do that as part of my Lunar. So you had a lot of people wanting to play castless Lunars because of that. 3rd edition, we decided to go with the Pact, describing the Pact as much more of a mutual aid society, and with certain rulers above things, and certain, like the Shahanyas, not really rulers. That's a bad way to describe them. More like mentors, more like philosophical guides. Like they all have competing philosophies. They're all elders. And the general feeling in the Silver Pact is war against the realm, which is really good because the realm hates you and is continually hunting you.
Okay. Well, I've gone for Brotherhood because although I think the mentor side is something this character could grow into, right now he is probably too egotistical to take the advice of someone else. He needs to be beaten once or twice before he can start looking for a potential mentor. Yeah. So right now he still respects the Silver Pact. He still respects the other Lunars that are a part of it. He sees them as his brothers in arms and fellow warriors. But maybe as the character evolves, he will change that relationship.
If I were running this as a campaign, if I were running this character, I would absolutely work in a quick 1 or 2 session story arc where you have to go find a newly exalted Lunar before the wild hunt gets to them. And you have to sort of convince them to be part of the Pact and convince them the righteousness of your ways and sort of what to do. And that's actually very much the sort of core of the chapter fiction in the Lunar's book.
Okay, maybe then we should say my minor intimacy is someone I've actually taken under my wing. Maybe it is maybe a Lunar who has just become exalted.
Okay.
So we could make someone up. We'll call him, for the sake of, we'll call him Running Dead Face.
Okay.
Why not?
What?
Strange the words that just spring into your mind. Running Dead Face, I have a paternal.
Okay.
With.
All right. So
how this Lunar earned the name Running Dead Face, we do not know yet.
Aren't you supposed to have one intimacy that you don't like a negative one? Isn't that like a thing?
It can be a thing.
I don't know. The Discord is talking like it has to be.
Well, Running Dead Face is Grudge now. I was paternal. He's nothing but a letdown. He's a disappointment to me.
Yeah, like everyone's saying that you need a negative time. So.
Oh yeah, one must be in some way negative, a thing the character poser dislikes. Well, all right. There's 2 ways to look at this. You can either look at one of your negatively defined intimacies, the never do this or that, as a negative thing. Like you consider that to be a vile thing. Or you can definitely take one of your ties and turn them negative. Like perhaps actually because we didn't take one of your Lunars as an ally, right? We only chose the contacts of the Silver Pact. Perhaps Running Dead Face was someone your character tried to take under his wing and instead decided to say piss off. And so how would he kind of feel about that? About someone who said, I don't want to join your stupid pact.
How dare Running Deadface say that?
Yeah, okay.
Effrontery is my relationship with Running Deadface now.
So now you have a rival Lunar. Who doesn't
it's
like
only minor. We've got to get into a fight before it becomes major.
Yeah. He's not a worthy opponent.
No.
He's a young Lunar. So what do you care? But you're still a little pissed off.
That's what I say to all the people I don't actually want to fight. Oh, you're unworthy, I say to the person that's 10 feet taller and white. I'm going for a bath.
Okay. This is you know, that's a perfectly in character thing to do for an Exalt, by the way. Okay, next is Limit Trigger, a circumstance that exacerbates your Lunar's Great Curse. So, Exalted had this mechanic called the Great Curse. Now, when they defeated the Primordials, they killed some of them. And when they killed some of the Primordials issued a sort of death curse that affected the Exalted as a whole. And every time a Primordial was killed, it sort of reinforced it more and more and more. And Solars and Lunars kind of get the worst of it, but Sidereals and Dragonblooded get a more subtle effects that affect them as well. But the basic idea of it is that it emulates the Achilles in his tent sensation. Achilles is so angry at the world that has put upon him. He goes and he pouts in his tent despite the battle raging all around it. He will not come out no matter what. It's people have different feelings on the Great Curse. I played enough games to know that it's rare to have character mechanics that don't involve both carrot and stick. Like, players will generally not choose to do something that's not in their character's best interest, or not in their best interest in a meta sense, no matter how much in-character interest it makes, without some kind of prodding. So the Great Curse has both carrot and stick aspects to it. Let me pull up the Great Curse stuff. Here we go. When you face great stress and strain, the curse whispers to everything that's monstrous within you, setting it free. Right? As a Lunar's limit rises, dark passions haunt her heart. She grows keenly aware of how easily she can embrace monstrosity, the life of a beast. And this is solely a matter of role-playing until you reach limit 10. So you gain limit by whenever you act against a major intimacy, you roll 1 die. Whenever you act against or defining intimacy, you roll 2 dice. And you don't really need to write that down. I'm telling you. And if you have a specific limit trigger, a specific condition under which you gain limit. So basically, anytime that something's challenging your major intimacies, you're going to be rolling dice and adding to it.
Okay. Okay, well, I'll keep that in mind.
So limit triggers. A limit trigger is a situation you find especially stressful, frustrating, or traumatic. Lunar limit triggers often, but don't always relate to their rage, things that rouse the Lunar's anger or a consequence of it. So something might include someone insulting, belittling, or deliberately frustrating you, you offering advice, guidance, or wisdom, but it doesn't get heeded. The immorality or transgressions of others against some sort of taboo that may be perfectly reasonable to you, but is nonsensical to them. An adversary who exploits your mercy or compassion, or doesn't show any to anyone around them. Or someone the Lunar wants to like get guidance from, rejects or humiliates or deliberately ignores her.
I think I'm actually going to put something heroic in on this character, because for the most part he's been entirely self-centered.
Okay.
So to show that he has some empathy, his limit trigger has got to come from when he sees other people beating down people below them. Because his principle is he's never going to get in a fight with someone who he deems is weaker than himself. And he holds other people to that same standard. So, for instance, if he sees a father clap his son around the head, or tell him off for being naughty or something like that, Broken Tusk will get angry at that. So, how dare you strike a child?
Yeah.
But likewise, if he sees a great Titan going into battle against 3 pathetic soldiers that are just desperately trying to hold their ground, that's the kind of thing that will set Broken Tusk off as well. Partly because he'll be inspired by their bravery, but mostly because he'll think, why is this Titan wasting its time on these tiny people when it could be over here fighting me?
So that's definitely going to be a very interesting thing when it comes to his war band, because he's never going to want to just have like a rout with them. He's never just going to want to have a straight like let's hit this unprotected village. He's going to be like, let's get all the defenders out at one time, so this will be an actual fight.
He's all for the ideal of glorious war.
Okay. All right, cool.
The perfect soldier.
So, all right, that's a good limit trigger, I think, for a lunar. Limit trigger is aggression towards someone weaker than the aggressor.
Yeah,
something like that.
So, yeah, aggression from the big to the small.
No, sounds good. So, when a lunar reaches limit 10, she's overtaken by a monstrous urge. All monstrous urges compel the lunar to behave in a certain way, treated as a defining intimacy. So it essentially becomes a secondary defining intimacy. It allows you to treat certain influence as unacceptable. When someone tries to influence you, if it just goes against one of your defining intimacies, or it's something you obviously wouldn't do, I'd be like, go jump off a cliff. You can treat that as an unacceptable order. So it doesn't matter how many dice the character throws at it. Like, you're just gonna be like, no, I'm not going to do that. Unless they throw a charm at it, unless they do other things, unless they do this or that. A lot of the social mechanics involve determining a character's intimacies and ties, and kind of ferreting out ways to manipulate them. Do that by choosing your angle of attack and choosing what you're going to argue about. So monstrous urges, there's a couple sample ones in the book. One is avaricious horde beast craving. You designate some sort of type of object that you value, crave, or want to amass, and you seek them out at every opportunity. Could be hard drugs, precious jewels, liquor. There it is. And no matter how much you get, you have to have more until it ends. Each monstrous urge lasts either for one scene or one session of the game, although it may end early if a specific condition is met. So if there's just a scene where we're talking about there's weeks you're spending in a forest walking around, and you hit your limit in the forest, there might be one scene where you're acting monstrously, and we detail that. But if you're in a city and you're sort of playing like hour to hour as your scenes, it might last for the whole session. So another urge is bellowing tyrant proclamation. Oh, this actually is very good for you. The lunar swells with overbearing pride. Anyone she can perceive must be made to acknowledge her authority or superiority. Those who don't, or who fail to make their understanding of their own inferiority sufficiently explicit, must be convinced otherwise. This can take many forms: verbally berating someone, challenging him to a duel or competition, flaunting one's power or wealth, or loudly proclaiming oneself a lunar could all suffice, so long as they cause others to submit. So rather than just sort of turning his nose up at the weak people, he's basically saying, bow down before me, weaklings. And he's really puffing up against them.
Yeah, no, that is a perfect fit for this character's shape. So what was that called?
Bellowing Tyrant Proclamation.
Perfect.
Okay. Now, you have 15 bonus points that can be spent at any time during character creation to raise your character's limits, but that is the last part we are up to now.
Okay, well, first things first, I'm putting 3 in allies to account for what we spoke about earlier. I'm not going to go for Heart's Blood. but I am going to go for Stolen Faces because that matches my idea of the character getting into lots of fights and essentially taking on perhaps the title and grandeur of the people he's beating.
I'm gonna bust in for a second, like I keep doing. Quite a few people were saying that you don't have to choose a specific limit break. They thought it was like Solar's, where it depends on the context. You don't actually choose a specific monstrous urge. Is that true?
Choose a limit trigger in a circumstance that exacerbates your great curse.
Right. But like the actual monstrous urge part, I don't think that you choose.
Oh, she's overtaken by a monstrous urge. The storyteller can choose a monstrous urge from those below or create a new one, though she should discuss the choice with the Lunar's player to ensure it sets the Lunar up for dramatic moments in character development. So no, you're not restricted to bellowing title and proclamation, but as your storyteller, that's probably what I would use the most.
Okay, well, no, that's useful to know. Thank you very much, commenter, who pointed that out.
It was like 5 people. Thanks, everybody.
Well, they're not, and they're not wrong, because the thing I was talking about earlier, for example, if you are in the middle of a forest, avaricious horde beast craving, if your character's addicted to liquor, there's not going to be a ton of stuff around there unless you spend a scene, I don't know, fermenting sap out of a tree.
I'd like to see that scene.
Yeah, it'd be a good scene.
How many dots was Stolen Faces?
Oh.
You're asking the hard questions.
Mm.
I'm looking.
All right.
This is,
do abilities cost 2 dots to go up? Go up in a dot.
Abilities are 2 per dot.
Good.
Two abilities per dot.
What?
I'm sorry, no, that's not true. That's two bonus points per dot of ability. You're totally
there you
right.
go. There you go, Neil.
I felt lost for a second there, but I'm back in a system I recognize.
Yeah, what? You don't want to add 32 dots of abilities for your 16 or 15 extra, 30 extra?
Each dot can provide 5 human shapes with no significant social standing, peasant farmer, local bandit gang member, or a single human shape whose social, economic, or political status is a valuable asset. So that means you basically beaten three people of worth, 3 people of import, or 2 people of import and 5 people of no import whatsoever. Which you might have done. You might have picked up the local tough guy and beaten him up. And so if you ever need to look like a generic tough guy and not like yourself, you can do that. But yeah.
So how many dots do you think?
We went with I'd go with 2.
2. Okay. So I'll break down what I've taken so far. So I've taken 1 dot in dodge, so that's 2 points. 1 dot in craft, as discussed earlier, so that's another 2 points. I've taken an additional dot in brawl, so that's another 2 points. That's 6 I've spent so far.
Don't feel dissuaded from taking an ability up to 5. By the way, you're in exile.
I fully intend to put brawl up to 5 if I have any points left.
Okay.
So Stolen Faces, that puts my points spent up to 8, and I've put 3 dots in allies, so that would put me up to 11 dots spent so far, unless I've missed one. So I think I'm going to put brawl up to 5 dots. So that means I've spent 13 of my freebie points, my bonus points. So willpower.
I'd advise putting it in willpower is what I was going to say. There's you don't have any. Yeah, you don't have any more bonus points. Never mind.
Okay.
There's other stuff you could buy. You could buy a latent ability of your spirit shape animal, for example, of which a Hellbore has several. You could buy charms if you wanted to, spells if you had them. But I think actually your character doesn't engage with a ton of that, so I think this is fine. And you can definitely build up the latent abilities of your animals through play.
Okay.
You can spend experience on that.
Yeah, I think so. And so what would my normal starting willpower be?
You begin with 5 willpower.
So as I had 2 points left, I assume it's purchased on a 1-for-1 basis.
Yep. So you'd start with 6 willpower.
Well, not if I start with 5. I'll be on 7 willpower.
Mm-hmm. That leads us to the last step, actually, the finishing touches, of which willpower is 1.
Well, willpower's done.
You begin at Essence 1. Your personal motes are 16, and your peripheral motes are 38.
Is this on the left side or the right side?
Once again, in the chat, just so you know, you do need at least 1 linguistics to be literate.
And
you should pick your native tongue.
Yeah, my character isn't literate.
Okay.
Is it linguistics or lore?
I mean, linguistics makes much more sense.
That's true.
You can know lore without knowing languages. Although they said that generals should have the ability to read, if you got to read like missives or whatever. But
I can command other people to do that, and who would dare lie to me?
Mm-hmm.
I love your illiterate berserker.
So personal 16, peripheral 32. Did you say
38?
38. Okay. And I've put that on the right side, as I assume that's the maximum.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, in terms of health levels, you start with the standard 7 of any White Wolf character from time immemorial. So that's 1 -0, 2 -1s, 2 -2s, a -4, and an incapacitated health level. But remember that your ox bodies add to those.
Yeah, I won't fill that in right now because I know what that. I will just have to do some mental maths at some point. But yes, lovely.
Now we'd fill in your soak, which would be plus charms and armor and hide and all that. But that can be stuff that you definitely fill out just as you go along, or as it's all derived characteristics. We've made all the important choices for your character.
Okay, excellent. Well, in that case, I think Broken Tusk is ready to face the world.
He is.
Now let's start running a game. No, now I'm going to go to bed. So that's Broken Tusk. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and behold.
Oh,
it's me again. Yeah. Oh, good God, Neil! It's got very dark where you are.
I think the best part of this whole stream for me has been the fact that Neil obviously didn't turn on any lights in his apartment, so it's just been him slowly sinking into shadows.
That's typically how my Exalted games go. My players get more and more excited, and I just slink lower and lower and darker.
Like you're just a face right now.
As they beat me down. I know. Running Exalted is always really interesting because I can try to throw things at my players and then they'll just sort of get around them because the Exalted are that powerful. And you just have to kind of throw up your hands and be like, well, okay.
Well, yeah, I've not seen your faces for the last hour and a half since I started looking at the character sheet, so it's wonderful to see you both again. But hopefully what this has done for viewers is give them a bit of an insight into Exalted, give them a bit of an insight into Lunars, and certainly it's done a lot for me in that regard. As I said, when I came into this, I knew absolutely nothing about Exalted, and now I do actually feel I've got a fairly simplistic but fun grasp on what the game is about. I could theoretically roll this character out now and play it, and would feel pretty comfortable doing so. And what's more, I've got to say thank you to Neil. He has handled this character creation masterfully. Thank you very much, Neil.
You're very welcome, despite misremembering several little minutia rules.
You've literally got 3 editions and over a decade's worth of Exalted lore in your brain. I think you're fine.
Okay.
And I've got to say thank you to Dixie, because you have been moderating the chat, feeding back all the interesting little tidbits and suggestions from the fans, from the writers, and everyone else. Thank you very much, Dixie.
This was fun. I love any chance I get to hang out with the community. And honestly, I mean, a lot of them know, like, I'm newish to Exalted too. I think having videos like this that we can show people and say, like, here's how you make a character is really, really helpful. So.
And yeah, thank you very much to everyone who has watched, listened, participated, left a comment, whether it's in support, in critique, everyone on the Discord, everyone on the Slack, everyone who has a love for Exalted or is just looking to get interested in Exalted. Obviously, we are doing this video in part because of the Lunars Kickstarter that's currently running. And I'll say again, the link is in the description box below this video right now. It will stay there as well once this video stops. There's a number of higher level tiers that are still available now on the Kickstarter, but the Kickstarter only has about a couple of weeks left, less than a couple of weeks. So
9 days. And I will say that right at the beginning of this video, we hit a stretch goal. So more to go. Yay.
What did we hit?
We hit 230, which I'd have to scroll all the way down this incredibly long Kickstarter page to tell you what that is. There's too many stretch goals. Too many stretch goals. Too many stretch goals. We just hit the Silk Bookmark upgrade for the actual deluxe edition, which is awesome for when you're trying to, remember a whole bunch of things at once.
Oh, cool.
At 2.5 is we're going to expand on the War for the Call section for Many-Faced Strangers. So that's going to be exciting.
Shaoka lives.
If you say so.
I know what that means. You do not.
No, I know nothing. So
you're just a literate berserker.
Yes, and proud of it.
Just lounging in baths and snuffling up truffles in the forest.
As ever, I'm just channeling myself onto the character sheet. So, and thank you very much finally to everyone who has backed the Kickstarter so far. The rate at which this Kickstarter has grown has exceeded our expectations. It's doing fantastically well. It's wonderful to see such enthusiasm for one of the games we're working on, and we are incredibly grateful for your support. So please, if you have the opportunity before the Kickstarter concludes, do feel free to back it. And even if you can only back it at a low level, that's absolutely fine too. You get access to the manuscript and all those wonderful charms and everything like that we were talking about in this video. You'll be able to read as the Kickstarter goes on. The manuscript is being drip fed to the backers so they can offer critiques, so that they can basically play with this material before the book even comes out. So if that's not an incentive to back, I don't know what is. With that said, I'm going to sign off now. So thank you very much, everyone, and cheerio.
All right.